Hello, everybody. It's Dominic with Last Word on Gaming with episode 2 of Cosplay Cast. We're going to bring Anne, otherwise known as Ms.Valentine2552, on here very shortly. She's going to talk to us about some of her cosplay and some of her gaming history. There's a slight spoiler for Last of Us Part 2, so if you don't want to have that spoiled, make sure to pause the video right when we start talking about Twitch streaming. Let's bring her on. All right, hello, Last Word on Gaming. Welcome back to another edition of our Cosplay Cast interviews. I'm here with Anne, who was actually a part of our awesome Resident Evil cosplay interview we did back in November. If you haven't checked that out already, the link is in the description. Make sure you give that a read before you listen to the rest of this interview. So, Anne, how are you doing? We're glad to have you back on.
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm really glad to be back. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So, let's jump right into it, and there'll be plenty of cosplay talk here in a minute. But I wanted to take a step back first and just kind of talk to us about your gaming journey. How did you start gaming originally?
So originally, I started gaming by watching games because I was the younger sister, younger cousin. So when it came to like having the Nintendo console or the Sega, I would just get to sit there and like watch my sister play or watch my older cousins play. Like they would play Sonic, they would play Zelda, stuff like that. I vividly remember Super Mario World 2. That was the first game I ever got to play like on my own. But that was really like my start. Was they were like the older ones, so whatever they did was like the cool thing. So I just like learned to just observe gaming and learn how to play basically through them.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm also the youngest cousin, so I have memories of them pretending to plug a controller into the PS1 and handing it to me, and I was thinking I was playing, so I totally get that. But so it sounds like Mario is kind of one of your big first segues into gaming.
Yeah, Mario was like the first game I remember playing on my own. And my sister and I would fight over whose room the Nintendo got to be in, to the point where my dad was like, now nobody gets it. And it was like, oh man. But my first actual ever game that I played from start to finish was Final Fantasy VII. That was kind of like my gateway game. Got the PlayStation for Christmas. It was the first console I ever owned that was mine. And my best friend had gotten me so heavily into Final Fantasy VII, so I was finally able to get the PlayStation, get the game, and play it. My first RPG, the first game I ever played from start to finish, and it was just that gateway into just everything.
What a good gateway to get into, though. Final Fantasy VII, you can't get much better than that.
Pretty much, yeah. It was like after we were done playing the game, we would go online, we would look up fan art, we'd read fan fiction. So it was kind of like my like entry into just the world of fandoms, pretty much.
That's awesome. So I have to ask you then, what did you think of the remake they did a couple years ago?
At first when I was playing it, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of confused because I'm like, okay, this is kind of the same, but different. And the more I started to realize like that it was like a retelling and an artistic interpretation, I was down with it. I liked it because I feel like, this game came out when I was a kid and I loved it and I grew up, and in a way it was almost like Final Fantasy VII had grown up as well and kind of evolved. So I'm excited. I hope we hear something about part 2 like in the next 5 years, but I really liked it. I really appreciated what they did.
It's awesome. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I hope we hear something about the second part sooner rather than later.
For sure.
We'll see. So awesome. So Final Fantasy VII gets you into the RPGs. And then just to kind of, like I mentioned earlier, you were part of our Resident Evil cosplay interview a couple months ago. So I got to ask, how did that, because that's just such a wide franchise. How did you get your start there?
It was a series like I always knew about it. I had my first entry, like my first experience, it was Resident Evil 2. My friend in middle school was really into like horror movies, so we rented it. We played it a little bit. We got way too scared and never finished it. But then when Nemesis came out, I asked for that for Christmas, got that game, got way too scared again and never finished it, but it was always just there. And then when the GameCube remake came out, it was such a hit and it was like such a big deal. And I didn't have a GameCube, but a friend of mine did. So I went to his place and we were all just grouped around watching him play it. And that just kind of like reinvigorated me into the series. So yeah, it was just one of those things where it's like, hey, there's this really scary game. Do you want to play it? And it's like, yeah, sure, we'll play for 10 minutes and then run and hide. So
Resident Evil is really good at that. It's good at the jump
Yeah,
scares. So
definitely.
is that fair to say? So was, transition kind of into the cosplay then, was that was your original Jill Valentine one of the first projects you tackled, or?
Yeah, so Jill wasn't the first costume I ever made, but she was probably like the third costume, second or third. There was a horror themed cosplay photo shoot going on because back in the day when there were some conventions, we would meet up and have photo shoots, and the theme for this photo shoot was horror. So it's like, okay, I'm going to make Jill, and I still have photos of that, and I look back and I'm just like, oh, like what was I thinking? Like it was so bad, but at the time I thought I was so cool. And it's just like I've remade that costume like 4 times now, and it's just yeah, I knew if I was gonna make a horror costume that I had to start with Jill for sure.
So that was your second or third. What was how did you transition into cosplay? What was your first kind of costume you did? How did that come about?
Well, for cosplay, it's like my best friend Anissa and I growing up, we always knew about conventions. There was kind of this word of mouth. But living in South Florida and hearing about these conventions going on in Orlando, and when you're a teenager, it seems so far away. So it's like we didn't really know what went down at conventions, but the one thing we did know is that you cosplayed when you went to them. And we knew, okay, if we ever go, we have to cosplay. So she goes away to college, and there just so happens to be a convention happening near where she lives. She calls me, she tells me about it, and I had just gotten a car and I drove up to Tampa and we went to the convention. We had no idea what we were doing. We didn't know about the panels and all the stuff going on. We just were kind of like, we were out of our element, but at the same time, like we were where we belonged. We were just like babies, just kind of learning like how this whole scene worked. And after that, we were just completely hooked.
That's awesome. So what were the first couple of costumes you put together?
So the first costume I put together was like super like very, very obscure cosplay back then. It was from an anime called Read or Die. And I put together the costume from things I took from my sister's closet, things I got at Walmart, and things at the thrift store. The character's name was Yomiko Reedman. So I remember I carried around my Harry Potter book because she was kind of like a book nerd. And I wore the same, oh God, it's so cringe, but it's like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I wore the same costume every day because I didn't know people brought multiple costumes. But that was the first costume that like I ever made. And it was just like, I was so excited and so happy. And it was just, I knew like, okay, from now on when I go to conventions, like I have to go in costume. It's just what I have to do.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I know we've talked, like I said, the link is below. So if you haven't checked out the interview where we talked in depth about your Jill Valentine cosplay, definitely check that out. But, as you've gained more experience as the years have gone on, has your creative process, your thought process of how you approach costumes changed at all?
It hasn't. It's just the resources are so vastly different. Back in the day, it would be, okay, what do I have in my closet? And what thrift store are we going to look for costume pieces? And then like what little scraps of fabric do I need to make it look right? Now you can literally walk into a fabric store and there's a section of cosplay fabrics, there's cosplay patterns. We used to get commercial patterns back in the day and pattern hack, which was basically like, well, this pattern's not meant for this outfit, but it can work if we just adjust it. So it's like my planning and my thought process has kind of always been the same. It's definitely gotten much better, but with the new, like just the vast amount of resources out there, it's almost like it's super easy to cosplay now. So it's like there was a lot of people who worked really hard and kind of like trailblazed for the community. But yeah, my process is kind of the same. It's just so much, it's easier, but at the same time, there's a lot more pressure because there's just so much more like out there for people to work with. So I feel like there's kind of this pressure for people to like perform at top tier levels. And if you're competing, that's totally cool, but also have fun. Like I think a lot of people forget that we're all nerds playing dress up, like just kind of have fun with it. And whether like you make your costume from scratch, someone made it for you, or it's store bought, like we're all the same pretty much, like at the end of the day. So yeah, it's an evolving hobby for sure.
That's such a good way to put it. It's called cosplay, so let's have
Yeah.
fun with it. you know.
Yeah, people forget that it's like there was a joke, it still kind of floats around where it's like cosplay serious business, because some people take it way too serious,
Mhm.
and it's like you kind of have to sit back and just like enjoy it.
So, and like you said, with the resources too, I mean, you can go onto YouTube now and just find just
Yeah.
so much content of people with tutorials, people doing their own stuff. There's so many more resources out there right now. So, I know, what do you kind of have in the works right now that you can talk about that you're working on cosplay wise?
Um, it's funny because I always have like this list in the back of my head of like things I want to do, but so more often than not, I don't get to them. But currently in the works right now, I'm remaking Resident Evil 5 Jill. So I made that costume, oh gosh, 9 years ago. So I'm working on remaking that now, and then I'm getting ready for PAX East, which is coming up in like 2 weeks. Oh my gosh. And I'll be finally debuting my Nico costume from Devil May Cry 5, which has been in the works for a year. It's just with COVID setting back conventions, like I have a closet full of costumes that no one's seen. So it's just nice to finally like get stuff out there for once.
So yeah, now the conventions are coming back and things are kind of going back to normal. You have that avenue again.
Yeah, because it was like, okay, we finally have time to work on costumes
Mm.
because COVID and we're not going anywhere. But now we have all these costumes and it's like, oh, I guess I'm just gonna like stand in my backyard and take pictures because there's no cons. But now that cons are coming back like slowly but surely, it's nice to just be able to like fully get dressed up and just get out there again.
Have you been able, I mean, obviously, things have been kind of touch and go over the last year. Have you been able to get out to any cons since 2020 when everything kind of shut down?
Yeah, so I didn't manage to go last year. I think I went back to well, earlier this year I went to Otaku Fest in January, and then over the summer I went to another convention down here in Miami. So yeah, it was very weird. Like the whole wearing a mask thing and costume still takes some getting used to.
Mhm.
But the scene is definitely alive and well. Like I don't think we have anything to worry about cons going away. They're definitely more expensive to kind of compensate for the loss of time and all the extras that need to go along with it. But yeah, it was nice to get back, but also very weird and surreal because it's like, oh, we're all here, but this thing is still happening and everyone's wearing masks. So it's just a different scene. But yeah, slowly but surely it's nice to see the cons coming back.
It's awesome. Yeah. And like you said, it sounds like you've got PAX coming up. So
Mhm.
that should be a pretty big, pretty fun convention, I'm sure.
Yeah, so this is my third time going to PAX East in Boston. It's they've definitely stepped it up with their COVID protocol. Like you have to negative test or be
Mhm.
vaccinated, and you have to install an app, and it's masks all the way. So I definitely feel comfortable going back to cons. So it's gonna be nice. It's actually my first time traveling out of state since all this happened. So a little anxious, but really excited to just kind of get back out there and just meet people because I'm very social, I'm very talkative, so it's like I just miss going up to people and being like, "Tell me how you made your costume," and it's like, okay, we're gonna keep the 6 feet or whatever, but it's like just still you can shout, just tell me how you did it. So I'm
having
looking
that
forward to it.
having that camaraderie, having that community back will definitely be an awesome
Yeah,
feeling.
I love to do it because I feel like when my friends and I were young cosplayers, like the scene was very different. It was kind of almost snobby. So nobody came up to us and was like, "Oh, I love your costume. Tell me about it, this and that." Like it wasn't like that. And now as like the older generation of cosplayers, I kind of like to go up to the young kids and talk to them and kind of give them that encouragement that I guess I wish we got as kids, because you can really see the difference that it makes sometimes. And it's like, oh man, like it feels good. It feels good.
Paying it forward a little bit.
Yeah, basically trying to just maybe just kind of give them the encouragement they need to just step their game up, or if they were kind of on the fence about a costume, like just go for it. Like, just try. And if, like, take it from me, I've remade the same costume like 4 times. You're never going to get it perfect or right. But that's the great thing about this. Like, learn from what you did wrong and just make it better. That's the best way to go about it.
I mean, like you said earlier, you're redoing the Resident Evil 5 Jill, so I'm sure that's got to be exciting, and wait and see how that comes out.
It's so funny because I look back at the original costume and I'm like, oh man, that's really bad by my standards now, but by my standards back then, I was like, this was awesome. I did great on this, but now I'm just like, what was I thinking? It's like, yeah, you definitely, even just a difference of a year, you definitely learn a lot.
Got more tools in the toolkit now to go to.
For sure.
So cool. I know that's kind of on your work in progress list. And like you said, you've got a pretty long list, but are there any, big dream cosplays you want to pull off that have been sitting on the list?
It's funny because my dream cosplays actually have nothing to do with like anime or video games. I would love to make Scarlett's dress from Gone with the Wind, the dress that she makes out of the curtains. I always loved that dress, like, as a kid. I thought it was so pretty, and it's like I would totally buy curtains and make it out of actual curtains. That's always been on my list, like, totally unrealistic, but just one of those things that if it was like unlimited resources, unlimited funds, I would totally just jump in on that one.
That's awesome. So one other thing I kind of want to talk about that kind of goes in line with the gaming is, so you're also a Twitch streamer, right?
Yep.
Awesome. So how did you take that step into Twitch and streaming your gameplay?
I to be honest with you, I never, as Twitch became more and more popular and I watch a ton of Twitch, I always thought like never would I do that ever. But it all started when The Last of Us 2 came out, and a lot of my friends were on the fence about, they're like, well, I don't want to play it, but I want to know what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big Naughty Dog fan, so I'm like, all right, well, I'll play it. And I was like, I guess I can stream it. So I streamed it like directly through PlayStation, but no camera. And then I realized like, oh, I have a mic, so I can talk to them. And I didn't stream to Twitch because I was scared. I'm like, no, it's safer if I stream on YouTube. Nobody will find me there. So it was just me like streaming for my friends so that they could experience the game and not have to like play it themselves. And I kind of realized like, this is cool. Like, I kind of like being able to play and have people to interact with. And as much of a Resident Evil fan as I am, I had never really played through the games because I was like scared to play them and nervous. And I thought, I really want to play these games. I really want to like fully experience them, but I don't want to do it on my own. So I thought, okay, well, no time better than the present to start a Twitch channel and see if anybody wants to hang out. And we've been going strong for a year now. We've been doing really well, and I have a lot of great people who come through, and we've played like almost all the mainline titles now, including like the original games. So yeah, it's just, I have a great support system of friends and just people I've met through the channel. So it actually worked out. Like, I went from hiding on YouTube streaming, like, no, nobody come in here that doesn't know me, to, hey, let's just stream on Twitch. And even if I like get stuck in a closet for an hour, it's still entertaining because I can laugh with people about it. So
Sure. Yeah. And then that's awesome to hear how the community kind of came together, and that's how that came about. So I have to ask you, just because you referenced Last of Us 2, what did you think of the game overall? Because that's always such a hot question.
It's funny because no matter how long that game has been out, I will still sit here and just be like, I still don't really know how I truly feel about it, because there's some things I like, there's some things I didn't like, but overall I walk away with like a really bitter taste in my mouth, because it's like, when I first heard about the sequel, I'm like, no, this game is in good hands. They're going to do right by it. And I totally respect what they did, because they really pushed the limits and they really went hard for a video game, I think, as far as like the writing and the storytelling. So it's like, I definitely respect what they were doing, but I love Joel too much. It just hurt me. It hurt me. Like, I feel like I'll carry that wound forever, but I don't want to see a part 3 ever. But like, I totally respect the hell out of Naughty Dog for like taking the risk. I just wish things would have been a wee bit different, but yeah.
I get that. The first one is one of my all-time favorite games. It was the first, I didn't have a PS3, so it was the first game I played on the PS4. And I just remember thinking the entire time, how is this going to end? And there's no way this is going to have like a happy ending, like have the fairy tale happy ending. And I was okay with the way they ended the first one. I was like, if that's it, that's it. It ended on enough of a cliffhanger, but it also answered some questions. So, and I'm a huge Naughty Dog fan. I grew up on the Jak and Daxter games.
Okay.
So that was like my introduction to platforming, and that was one of the first game series that I like really got into. So, fellow Naughty Dog fan.
Yeah, man, it was definitely rough because I loved that studio so much, and so it was really hard just hearing so many people be negative about it. Like I almost took it personally because it's like, no, like, you guys can't feel this way about them. Like they're great. And then, I feel like too, a lot of the negativity came from people who didn't even play the game. So it's like, come back when you've actually like played it, and then we can talk about like whether it was good or bad,
That's fair. That's totally fair. So in a way, that was the start of your Twitch streaming was Last of Us Part 2 in a way.
My very like obscure Last of Us Part 2 stream that I'm like, dude, I'm streaming for 3 people, and some guy finds me and totally spoils like the connection between Abby and Joel.
No,
I was like, there's like 4 people in here. What just happened? And that was also my first introduction to streaming with trolls. So it was like, okay, all right.
Oh, that's a rough one to get introduced to.
Yeah, because he came in and he's like, so wouldn't it be funny if Abby's dad was the doctor that Joel killed in the first game? And I was just like, I was literally 10 minutes away from discovering that in the game too. So it was just like, oh, totally funny. Thanks, dude. Yeah.
Thanks for ruining that for us. You couldn't have given us another 10, 15 minutes tops.
My luck, but yeah, we have fun. Twitch has been great. It's a good way just to be social and just to game and just talk to my friends and meet new people and kind of just, get my cosplay out there. And also what I really like is just being able to like raid other streamers, raid my friends, and just kind of like share the love and like the support. So that's always like a plus to me. I've definitely taken away a lot of positivity from streaming for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. And so speaking of Twitch and all of your socials, those are all going to be linked below on both the YouTube video and the article on the website. So definitely check out the Twitch stream, check out all of the socials down there. All right. Well, Anne, we can't thank you enough for coming back again. It's been awesome having you back. And like I said, the original Resident Evil article is linked below. Make sure you give that a read.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
So thank you, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Thank you again to Anne for coming back on the website and talking to us about some gaming, some cosplay, and a little bit of Twitch streaming. Make sure you follow her on all of her socials, which are linked below. And make sure you follow Last Word on Gaming on all of our socials and join our Discord channel. All of that is linked below. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.